Wait, do you know why they didn't think Christ was
There were
crucified?
more than 500 people
They
there.
they thought he wasn't crucified because they thought he was God in every sense. In other words, he didn't have a physical
Okay,
nature.
You know why? You know what? Can I tell you why?
That's why they thought he wasn't crucified.
Can I tell you why?
It's suspicious the Quran copies that
Can I
idea.
tell you? Can I tell you?
Interesting.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
One sec. Be quiet.
That does say be quiet.
Oh,
Come
then
on,
let me
man.
talk then.
It's
Come on,
not, it's not
man.
your dimmy, bro.
You can't say that, man. I wouldn't tell you.
Alright,
to be
cool,
quiet.
cool.
Respect,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean?
I'm being myself. You're not letting me talk. I
Well,
just came in.
It's a dialogue, innit? You can't just say be quiet.
Are you involved?
Yeah, I'll talk to you. I'll be happy.
No,
Focus.
let me talk to one person, innit? Alright, cool. In the Quran it says, yeah, it was made to seem like he was crucified.
Right.
So that's why this was even a historical. We have an answer for it. Because it was made. Judas was
Right,
crucified.
but the Quran isn't a historical document for things in the first century.
Yes, it is. Okay,
If you want to appeal to things that
the
are...
Quran corrects the Bible in many places.
Okay,
like
wait,
in the time of Joseph, in the Bible it says that what's it called? There was a pharaoh, but we know that
but really it was a
from the
king.
Rosetta Stone
So you do-
that was discovered. Let me
okay.
talk. From the Rosetta Stone that was discovered, we know that there was.
You see, that also disproves the Quran if you take it that way.
Yeah,
Wait,
but
wait,
the Quran
wait.
talks about a coin.
A coin
That's
in
not
incorrect
existing.
terms.
Let me finish my point.
Go on, then.
The Rosetta Stone that was discovered, it proved that the Bible, there was no, that the Pharaoh dynasty didn't even exist at the time of Joseph, and it was actually a king. The
Linguistic
Quran says,
expression,
the
maybe.
Quran
It's a
says that
linguistic
there was no Pharaoh, there was a king at the time of Joseph. So
But
it corrects the Bible.
Again, if you take that kind
And
of
you said
ideology,
that Quran is
you see,
also-
we understand this very easy. It's just
No,
a
but you
listen.
just said-
Wait.
You
You
talk,
gave,
let us
and
answer.
now we're
No,
answering.
no, no.
You
Do you wanna let
literally
us
gave your
answer?
point. You said here, the Quran corrects the incorrect belief in the Bible. The understanding at the time of Joseph, the pharaohs wouldn't have been known as pharaohs; they would have been known as kings.
Yeah,
That was your point.
and in the Bible it says
Now,
they're pharaohs.
okay, exactly. Now let me try and explain this
And
to
we know
you.
this from the Rosetta Stone. that
We
was
don't
discovered.
think that the Bible has to be taking something in a sense that it's meaning we are fully claiming that this is a pharaoh. Rather, they're using terminology that would have been understood at the time. Now, this same type
No,
of
no, no,
this
the terminology-
this same type of language that's used in the Bible is also used in the Quran. Because as my friend here just pointed out,
Surah
there were
12, ayah
coins.
20.
He even got the Quran verse. There were descriptions of coins that were not used at that period
Called
historically.
dirham. Okay, so your point is that in the Bible, the person at the time of Joseph was a king and not a pharaoh. We're saying that the reason for that is because it's a linguistic expression used to show the audience. Wait, I'm answering a question. You said to be quiet when we ask questions, right? So the reason why is because it's a linguistic expression, because the people who are reading this at the time of Moses refer to the king of Egypt as a pharaoh. So it's just a linguistic expression which is used to familiarize the audience with what the reader says.
It's not finished yet.
However, you haven't gotten the point because we're going to say the whole point. However, if you say that an author cannot use linguistic expressions to do this, the problem you're going to have is that the Qur'an in Surah 12 about Yusuf, Surah 12 ayah 20, says that they traded dirham, which is coins which didn't exist at the time. So by your own standard, the Qur'an is making an error in that same passage.
During the time of Joseph, if we place him chronologically in Egypt around the 18th to 17th century BC, the monetary system had not yet known coinage. There were no dirhams, no dinars. All transactions were conducted using weighed metal, not counted coins. In ancient Egyptian contracts, we find terms such as daben or shat, units of weight for silver or copper measured on a scale. In other words, the ancient Egyptians did not count coins, they weighed metal. This is a fact confirmed by Middle and New Kingdom archaeology and epigraphy. The term dirham itself comes from the Greek drachmae, which entered Persian as dram and was later absorbed into Arabic after the Hellenistic expansion. The drachma coin began circulating in the Near East only after the 7th century BC, roughly 1,000 years after Joseph's lifetime. So when the Quran states that Joseph was sold for a few dirhams counted, it is employing numismatic terminology from the post-Hellenistic world and projecting it back into ancient Egypt. This is what historians call anachronism, using terms and concepts that did not yet exist in the period being described. What's striking is the Quranic phrase, maduda, counted, which further clarifies that the text is not referring to silver by weight, but to individual coins that can be counted one by one. In other words, the Quran portrays Joseph's Egypt as if it already had a coin-based economy, something that only emerged a millennium later. The Bible, by contrast, in Genesis 37:28, states that Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver, kesef, that is, silver by weight, not minted coins. This detail perfectly fits the economic practices of the ancient Near East and aligns with Egyptian archaeological evidence. Some Muslim apologists attempt to avoid this difficulty by claiming that dirham is merely a linguistic expression, a kind of adaptive phrasing meant to help a 7th century Arab audience understand the story. But if that were true, the claim that the Quran corrects the Bible's errors collapses instantly. A text that merely adapts language for the sake of audience familiarity is not a historical correction. It is a rhetorical paraphrase, not a factual clarification. Moreover, the expression, "a few dirhams counted," is too specific and descriptive to be reduced to a neutral metaphor for silver value. It unmistakably describes discrete coin units, not weighed bullion.
That's not true, but let me say one
What
thing.
do you mean that's not true?
Okay.
Can I answer?
I have
Let me
to
answer
say-
at least.
Not true.
Okay, can I answer at least?
Go on then.
Okay, you said that they're just using terminology just there. Why, if that's the case here, why in the Bible do they use the terminology as king in many places? They refer to many people as kings at the time.
Probably because the context about different people was
No,
different.
what do you mean? If he was a king, the context that should be used is the word
Not all
should be
kings are pharaohs.
Yeah, not all
But he was
kings
not
from
pharaoh,
different
so why was
countries
the-
are
Because it was familiar to them in that time as
wasn't.
someone who
It
ruled
wasn't.
Egypt at that point.
How
You're gonna
can-
address
how can
the
something
Surah
be
12?
familiar?
I wouldn't call someone in, I don't know, the king of Babylonian as a
Okay, how
pharaoh.
can something be familiar?
We won't use that term.
How can something be familiar which has not even existed yet? There's no
What do you mean by that?
Okay,
Bro,
okay,
the pharaoh
wait.
dynasty didn't even exist at the time of Joseph, so how can they use? How can
It
they
wasn't
be
wrote by
familiar with
Joseph,
something?
it was wrote by Moses, bro. Did you
But
not know
how
that?
can- No, but how can?
Okay, who wrote Genesis?
I don't know. You told me.
Oh, well,
A Muslim doesn't know who wrote Genesis.
Okay, listen.
No good.
Okay,
Okay, who wrote Genesis?
according to
Did
you,
God
Do you not know who wrote the Torah?
who wrote the Torah?
Who wrote the
according to you?
Torah?
According to us, they're good. According to us,
Okay, if the Torah was revealed to who? Who was it revealed to?
to Moses.
Okay, good. So if Moses is well, for us, he's the author of the Torah, you just say it was revealed to him, right? If Moses authored the Torah, then Moses' audience is who it's talking to. But at the time of Moses, not Yusuf, who was years before Moses, at the time of Moses, it was referred to as a pharaoh, hence it's a linguistic expression. Now, you're yet to answer the question about Surah 12, Ayah 20, when it uses the currency dirham to describe the currency that Joseph was traded for. So if you're saying
No,
that
but
you
you
can't
have-
use
you're
linguistic
jumping to-
expressions
let
to
me-
No, it's the same
familiarize
idea.
yourself
No, no.
with an audience, then
You
you've
want me
buried
to
the
provide
Quran
proof,
as well.
but you have not provided anything to show
The
me.
same thing you're critiquing the Bible for is in your Quran.
Read the Arabic here.
I
What's
don't
the
understand. I can read
currency?
it, but I don't understand.
Okay, you can read it. What's the currency it says? Dirham, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah, but listen.
Okay.
Was
good.
dirham the
He's
historical currency at that time?
No.
Oh.
Exactly.
No, but you're not. Listen, dirham, yeah, it's a way of saying money. It's not.
Do you know this, or do you like you make it up on the spot?
Bro, it's a way of saying money.
So you know about this then?
Yes.
Okay.
But
So
do you know
what's the context of this then?
of that ayah?
Yeah.
Show me the
See, the point.
It's the
brother,
story.
I didn't memorize the
It's
Quran.
the
You want me
same,
to
bro.
recite now?
It's the same story we're talking about. The story
No,
of
but you
Joseph.
haven't.
That's
Okay,
why it's relevant.
you're jumping topics.
Wait.
You still have
So
not
the
provided
point,
me
the point is, if you want to say dirham is a general expression for money in Muhammad's time that they can just use, you're saying a linguistic expression can be described in this way to the people to understand. That's what we're saying. But you're saying that ours is an invalid explanation, which invalidates your position as well.
When Muslims say that dirham is simply a general term for money, they unknowingly change the nature of the Quranic text from a historical record into a popular paraphrase. If the Quran merely uses terms familiar to its 7th century audience, then the claim that it corrects the errors of the Bible can no longer stand. A text that adapts its wording for the comfort of its audience is not providing a factual correction of history. It is retelling an ancient story in the vernacular of its own time. In other words, the Quran is not rectifying history. It is re-narrating it in language that sounded natural to the Arabs of the 7th century. What makes this even more striking is that the Quran elsewhere shows clear awareness of proper historical context. For example, in the story of Ashab al-Kahf, Surah al-Kahf 18:19-20, the term warik is used to describe silver coins, and that setting perfectly matches the Byzantine Roman era when coinage was indeed in circulation. This demonstrates that the Quran itself distinguishes between societies that used coins and those that did not. Yet in the story of Joseph, the use of dirham breaks that consistency. It does not align with the historical realities of ancient Egypt. This reveals a projection of later terminology onto an earlier age. By contrast, the Bible is far more historically consistent. In Genesis 37:28, Joseph is sold for 20 pieces of silver, but the Hebrew term kesef simply means silver, not coins. In the ancient Near Eastern world, that term referred to weighed metal, not counted currency. This detail perfectly aligns with archaeological records and the known economic system of ancient Egypt. In this respect, the biblical account matches historical data far more accurately than the Quranic one.